Alright, today's unboxing, tabletop review, demo, whatever you want to call it, going to be on another Microtech, and slightly different than some of the ones that I've had. So let's go ahead and unbox this and look at it. Once again, e-knives, thank you. Got a little bit of a sweet tooth. Nice they always throw in. Last time it was Skittles. I got my receipt, business card. These are the guys. Check them out. Great prices. And they give you a lot of loyalty points and stuff. So after buying, I think I only bought like 2 knives from them. You get like 1,000 points for signing up or something like that. And then ordered a Microtech Ultratech and a Guardian Tactical Recon. And that gave me enough points added to the ones that I bought, where when I bought this Microtech here, it was 25 bucks off. Not a bad little discount. So let's see what we've got. We have a Microtech. And so normally when you think of Microtech, people think of these. They think of their the Cypher, they think of the Trudon, the Combat Trudon, the Ultratechs, of course, UTX 85s, UTX 70s, out the front knives. They typically think of their automatics. This is what, most people, when you think Microtech, that's the first thing you think of. This is what they're known for, and, they're awesome at it. There's the one I got before, reviewed it. M390 steel. Actually, this is the 204P steel, which is basically M390. Very cool knife. But this is what people typically think of when they're talking about Microtechs. This is not that. Oh, got something telling us sharp edge. I would hope so. Basic box, basic product manual and instructions on how not to cut your fingers off or whatever. That's all we do for the unboxings here, because nobody cares. Well, some people probably care about the box. I don't. And so this is what we have. This is called the SOCOM Elite. They come in an automatic and they come in a manual. And this time around, I opted for the manual. Didn't go for the automatic, and the reason is when you have bigger, heavy blades, they snap out. It's a lot of torque. It kind of jumps in your hand, so you got to make sure you hold it so you don't drop it. But at the end of the day, they don't really open any faster than that. I mean, how much quicker can you open than that? Also, the automatics, because they're spring-loaded, they fly out. So even when you push the button, you have to use your other hand to then, you're pushing against the spring to click it into place. So it's kind of a two-handed closing, even though it's one-handed opening, as opposed to a liner lock on a thumb stud where you flip it out, you push this with your thumb, and you can very easily close that with one-handed. So if you're holding something, a bag or wood or rope, whatever it is you're trying to cut, you can flick it open, cut, and then close it and put it back in your pocket one-handed. So this actually works out better for my uses to have single-handed operation. That's why I like the out the fronts. Single-handed operation. So, the other thing, let's see, what is this knife blade made out of? This is also the new 204P, which really is just the American equivalent of M390. It is a super steel. This has a clip point blade. It's got a nice flat grind on the sides. They also then polish the edges here, so these highlights, you get this nice two-tone effect. You get the serial number, the born on freshness date right there. There is not even a hint of any kind of wiggle. This is 6061, I believe. Although I did read some things. They said that they were using 7071 T6, which is a harder aluminum. But then other things said 6061. So I'll actually have to look that up and see what this particular one has, because Microtech does do different runs of things. And so some runs could have been at one material. They have different blade styles. They were using LMAX, sometimes M390. Now they're trying to go all-American on all of the components. And so it probably also has something to do with some of the tariffs on steels coming in. But anyway, they've switched to a uniform. I've heard that all their blades are actually going to the 204P, which is M390. It's just the American equivalent, but chemically it's the same. The action on this, I literally just unboxed this. You saw this. I'm giving it just a little bit of a flick. Now that was almost no pressure, but you push against the detent. That is butter smooth right out of the box. Uses ball bearings. Those ball bearings aren't loose, like if you've ever taken apart a Columbia River knife or something. If you're not careful, they're just held in place in the groove by grease, and then the bearings fall all over the place. These ball bearings are actually captive in a little plastic, either plastic or it might be Teflon retainer, so you remove them out like a car bearing or something. They come out in a piece, right? And you put them back in. You have to worry about losing the little balls. That just flies out. If I flick it hard, whoop, without hitting my table, I mean, that opens as fast as an automatic. So for a size comparison, and one of these is also an automatic, so let's go ahead and bring out some other knives here. Being Debbie Dropsy today. So, you know, folded. It's actually not the biggest. I was expecting it actually to be a little bit bigger based on the pictures. That is a 4-inch blade. So it's kind of long, but it's not massive. It's actually nice. That is EDC size for me. But here's the ones that I would put it in the same category, at least size-wise, for a pocket knife. You've got your venerable Spidey, Spyderco, Paramilitary 2. That's got S30V. I think it's a 3.5-inch blade. Very thin, lightweight, has the compression lock, very strong locking mechanism. You basically have to crush that steel bar in order to get that sucker to come loose. No wiggle. Also, I don't know if that's bronze phosphor washers or that might have bearings. Flicks open. Great knife. Very light. It's strong, but I don't feel like this is a really heavy-duty knife. And maybe it is. It just doesn't feel like it because it is so light. But that's what makes it great for pocket carry. You've got a great blade, great deployment. Look how loose that is. I mean, no wiggle. But when you want to close it, just push the compression lock and gravity will pretty much do the rest. That's why I like this knife. That's why I like one-handed operation. Another knife in this category, one that I reviewed recently, and actually is probably about the same size, looks a little bigger this way, but that's because part of that's the blade. This one's the Hogue Automatic. This is the EXA01, and that is an automatic. And that snaps open. Now, I don't know if you saw that. No, here I have to show how you have to push this against the spring. You need that two-handed closing, or trying to do it against your pant leg or something without cutting yourself. See how it snaps open, and you see this thing jumping in my hand. There's a shock. This is a big, heavy blade. The inertia it takes to flick that thing open that fast and slam it open, you feel it. It wants to jump out of your hand. Luckily, this is a good G10 texture. This knife is a beast. This thing is great. Love this thing. Tonto blade. This is 154 cm, so still a good steel. Not as good as the other, but good size blade. This opens just as fast. And that's why I got this just because I wanted it, and that's the one they had in stock. But if they'd had the manual version of this, I would have just grabbed that. Not so much for the $25 savings, but it's one less thing to break. And at the end of the day, it opens just as fast. But now I can't close it all the way with that finger without really kind of manipulating it and worrying about dropping it. Or if my hand slips, that thing will fling back open and probably flick this out of my hand. But just about the same size. Tip to tip, they're almost the same. This one's aircraft aluminum. This one's G10. Great if this was G10, but certainly aircraft aluminum's plenty strong. This one is very grippy because it's got the texturing built into and just the nature of the surface of G10. But this has some I think it's Creighton. They used to have grip tape on the outside. Now it's kind of like inset. But it actually gives you some good traction. It's smooth. It doesn't bite into your hand. But with these contours here, there's some mild jimping here, here, and over here. Your hand locks into that. It's slim while giving you a good grip. This fills your hand, I think, a little more front to back, but it's actually a slight bit narrower. It doesn't look like it, but it feels narrower probably because these edges here are scalloped in. And so the front of the knife, the back looks as thick, but the front's quite a bit thinner. So you feel that here. It doesn't keep you from. I just feel it doesn't keep you from slipping or anything. I just feel like for it to feel as secure and not want to twist, I have to grip this one just a little bit harder to get my fingers to pinch it in the front. Whereas here, it's much more natural. I don't feel like that's going to twist at all. Just seems a little easier to grip. Minor point, but it's there. Weight-wise, even though this one looks bigger, that G10, this is actually lighter. Not by much. Again, you're talking half, 3/4 of an ounce. Not enough to make a difference on whether you could carry it in your pocket or not. But about the same size as the Hogue. I've also got a zero tolerance. This is an 0802, I think. Rexford design. And this one uses S35 VN blade. So very good blade steel. This is a titanium frame lock. Very nice blade, stone wash. A little smaller. Tip to tip, we're looking at about 3/4 of an inch. So that one fills the hand. That's a 3.5-inch blade. Very strong knife. Super smooth action. That, I mean, this probably has the smoothest out of any of them, to be honest. You just little bit of flick of that flipper bar here, and just glides out. You want to flick it fast. That is every bit as fast as any of these. And actually this one, that might even be the fastest. That's faster than the automatic. The Spyderco's nailed it with this. I don't like a lot of their designs. Some of them are just too goofy, but the paramilitary series I think are just perfect. That thing just flies open in simple one-hand closing. Probably one of the best all-around EDCs if you just need a stout pocket knife without going overboard with some of these other ones here. So what I like about it so far, glass breaker, great handle, very ergonomic. I like a frame lock. It is manual, and that has a long blade. This one, I believe, has a 4-inch blade. Yeah, they're within like 1 millimeter or 2 of each other. Spyderco's definitely shorter by 1/2 inch. Yeah, same thing here. But great sweep, great belly to this. It is really sharp. I don't feel like it's as sharp as something like the Ultratech. That is a razor blade. That is insanely sharp. I've had to be careful a couple times just wiping it down like this. It just barely touched me and started to slice. And actually, I think it was the last week. It took a slim. I didn't even feel that it came off. I saw there was something on the blade. And I'm like, oh, what is that thing? And it was a patch of skin that I was just kind of doing this, running my finger on it, and it literally just shaved exactly 1 layer of skin off of my thumb, and I didn't even feel it. This is ridiculously sharp. So this one's not like that. This is a steeper grind angle because I think this is much more of a combat knife. This is much more of a take some abuse. It isn't as hair-popping sharp as something like this. But then again, this is going to dull much faster than that. If this was being used for its intended purpose, which is a heavy-use knife, this is a heavy-use knife. I would say, even though this is kind of fancy looking with the titanium and stuff, the way this is constructed, God, you say like, oh, sometimes you say there's like hardly any wiggle, but there's something. You feel something. There is nothing in that sucker. I should have reviewed this one before. This is a fantastic knife. Just, I mean, it feels like a straight blade. It feels like a fixed blade. There is literally no flex, nothing in that thing. And that's just because you've got titanium handles. You've got the ball bearings in there. That pivot is adjusted perfectly. It's down tight to where there is no play. Nothing. But it doesn't impede that blade flying out. Sometimes you want to get rid of the wiggle. You tighten it down and you slow down the action. Not with that bad boy. But in any case, if you want a heavy-use knife, this feels like it's the real deal. It looks good. They have a variety. They've got like 7 or 8 different handle styles. They've got a tanto blade. They've got different blade finishes. There's blackwash. There's satin. There's stonewashed. There's this two-tone. So between all the different color combinations and blade styles, there's probably like 30 of these different. Then you get into whether you want it to be automatic, and that would be a push-button lock. Basically like this one. You'd push the button, it would fly open, and that would also act as the lock. But I like the weight on this thing. I like the way it feels in the hand. The clip is tip down, right hand only. Again, sorry lefties. That's your only option. But great grip, great traction in your hand. You've got a swedge here, but it's not anything where you're putting too much pressure. If you had to bear down on the knife and do a little fine work or really get in and work on something, you've got jimping here, you've got jimping here if you choke up on it. Very comfortable. That lock is not going anywhere. It's on the first third, right where you want it. Nice, solid lockup. Blade centering is perfect. I saw a guy take one of these apart on a video where he took all the screws out, including the pivot screw, and the blade centering stayed exactly perfect. That normally when you've got a really stout lock, frame lock, or in this case a liner lock, pushing against that blade. See, I push out of the way, it's now pushing against that blade. A strong lock pushes pressure on the blade and knocks the blade off center. This thing's centered perfectly, and even when they loosened all the screws to where this thing was all loosey-goosey, that thing stayed aligned perfectly. This is a great knife. Very high quality materials, meticulously built. The anodizing's perfect. The clip is perfect. Strong enough, but not too strong. There's no abrasiveness here. On some of these knives, where you got the G10, that's probably going to wear on your pocket after a while. So you might start seeing it getting a little bit frayed if you take your knife in and out of your same pair of pants all the time. Here, this is nice and smooth. It's not going to do that. It's got a good strong clip. It'll keep it where it needs to be, but it's not going to chew up your pants. It's not exactly what I'd say like a little EDC knife. Might be overkill for some people, but I like big knives. I like the glass breaker. I like the grip. I got big hands. That fills my hand really nicely. That would be a great knife for heavy-duty cutting chores, or for its intended purpose as more of a combat knife. You know, if you had to use a blade, I keep saying, you know, it's probably not your first line of defense. You'd rather just pull a firearm and, you know, use that for defense rather than getting up and close. And, you know, most people don't have training with knives. I have a little bit, but not as much to where I would say I'm proficient with it. Not the way I am with a firearm. But, you know, if you can't carry a knife or a gun for some reason, and you live in an area that allows you to carry a knife, it's not a switchblade. It's not spring-loaded in any way, so you don't have to worry about running afoul of state laws. It's just a, you know, as long as it meets the size requirements that you're allowed to carry, it's just a knife. But if you had to use something for defense, that is a wicked-shaped blade that is made for piercing, but it's still got enough of a good belly for slicing. You got good traction on the handle. You got a glass breaker here. It's sturdy. That would make a decent defensive knife. I mean, that's what it was designed for. So, very cool. I like it a lot. I am going to do at some point a video of using these things and cutting through stuff and, you know, doing sharpness tests and all of that good stuff. I'll probably just do one video of like the top 6 knives I've got or something like that, rather than go through all 30 knives. But yeah, it's definitely a cool knife. So I'm going to carry it for a few days and kind of maybe make an update on how it fits in the pocket. But to be honest, if you're already carrying a pound-and-a-half of gun on your side, you know, another couple ounces isn't going to make a difference. It's a little heavier than this, but not terribly so. I think once it's in the pocket, it does feel a little heavier in the hand, but this is also probably the lightest out of these folders. It feels a tiny bit heavier than this one. This one's about the same. The ZT might actually be, even though it's a lot of it's titanium, that might actually be slightly heavier. But anyway, cool knife. Definitely check it out. Yeah. Anyway, that's all I got for now.